Analyzing for text complexity. Now I'm going to actually demonstrate analyzing a text using the 3 dimensions of text complexity that we've studied so far in the class. You can just watch me as I go through the process, or feel free to follow along with a text of your own and stop and go as we go through each of the phases. So first off, what we need to do is have a potential text. So I've selected to analyze a text from Wikipedia, an entry on polar vortex. It is an informational text defining what a polar vortex is in meteorology terms. So first of all, our task then is going to be to try to match this text with a group of students, and considering also the task that we might have them do. So first off then, with what grade of students would you match this text, and in what situation? So that is the question we're going to be taking with us throughout this analysis. We'll need to justify our decision using the 3 dimensions of text complexity: quantitative elements, qualitative elements, and reader and task. So before we actually go into the analysis, I invite you to actually look over the text, go visit the text at Wikipedia, look over just the first 2 paragraphs. We're just doing this first page, and then give it an eyeball guess of what grade level you think you might match it with. And then when you have that guess in mind, I'd like you to visit this Padlet wall and cast your vote. So, all right, so I'm looking at this, and the first time I looked at this, I thought, okay, this is definitely, I would say, 9th and 10th grade level. That's what I was thinking. So I would use this with 9th and 10th grade levels. That's just my eyeball guess. So I'm going to go to the Padlet wall. And I'm going to cast my vote right here under 9th and 10th grade. And all I need to do is make an X there. I don't have to put my name or anything. Okay, I can shorten it up. That's my vote. After you give your eyeball guess, you're just kind of loose guesstimate of what grade level you think you might use it with by going to the Padlet here. Now we're going to actually go through the steps of analysis. Oftentimes our eyeball guesses are far removed from what our students actually need, and that's one of the purposes of the text complexity elements, is to help you do a more close reading of the text so you can think about it and design learning experiences that are more appropriate for your students. So now we're going to go through those steps. And so first off then, if we can get the clicker to, there we go. So just to review our 3 dimensions of text complexity: quantitative, qualitative, and reader and task. And again, if you have not watched the video by Sarah Brown Wessling on simplifying text complexity, I very much encourage you to do that first, and do the readings for this week as well first, because that will give you much more prior knowledge going into this demonstration, so it will make more sense, and you can actually be at the level of actually applying it and using it with your own text. So first off, we're going to start off with quantitative. And just a quick review, quantitative are the aspects of a text that can be measured, and they are very based in the text. And here's just a little review of some of those aspects. Feel free to pause and review those if you'd like. So one of the tools that will measure some of the quantitative aspects of the text, again, that is the number of words per sentence, number of sentences per paragraph, length of sentences, etc. One of those tools that will do that measuring for you is storytools.com. And storytools.com, you can get there by just clicking on this link. It measures the text and these different quantitative items using a variety of different formulas for readability. And so I'm going to demonstrate how you do that. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the text, the polar vortex text. We are going to copy the section that we want to analyze, and then we are going to paste it right here in this box. And then you click check readability, and then it gives you a printout, or not a printout, but a table of readability results that will help give you a summary of the quantitative measures. We will go ahead and do that now. Are at our text that we are going to measure the quantitative aspects, or that we're going to use Story Tools to measure. And so here we are, we're just on the web page, and do know that you can use web page or web-based texts, and they will actually be, or ebooks, and they will actually be much easier for you to do this quantitative measuring component, in the sense that all you'll have to do is we'll just copy a section, and we're just going to go here to this section, including the images. And then we just copy that, and then we're going to paste that into the StoryTools tool. So I already have StoryTools loaded up here. So we'll click on storytools.com and it'll bring you to this. This is the main web page, and we're going to click on readability. And then it gives you a box that looks like this. And you can do up to 5,000 characters of text. And what we did is definitely under 5,000 characters. So I'm just going to paste that in this box. I now have the text in the box, and then I just click readability. And it gives me readability results. And these are a variety of different readability measures. You do not have Lexile readability scores on here. Those are very commonly used, and they're not on here just because Lexile does not give out their formula. They want you to pay for it, etc. You can sign up for a temporary access to it if you'd like to use Lexile scores. But for sake of what we'll be doing for this class, if you want to just use the StoryTools that gives these different measures, that's fine. You'll notice that it gives a average, and here it gives this text as having an average of 13.5, grade 13.5. It also goes into some more information and measures and quantitative numerical measures of the text. If you want to look at those, you're welcome to do that. But what I want you to keep in mind is definitely these different measures and this average. So this is the quantitative measure that StoryTools gave us for the polar vortex text. Perhaps you want to use a text that is not online or is not in an ebook that you can easily copy and paste. One of the ways that you can then use StoryTools is to take 3 100-word sections from the text and hand type them in. And that will give you a good overview too of what the numerical quantitative measures might be. So for example, if this were in a paper text, maybe I would type in this first 100 words going to the end of this sentence. And you want to choose 3 sections that are representative of the text and different types of language that are in the text. And so then I would go to StoryTools, and we'll just pretend that I'm hand typing this in. Then I'm going to go back, and then the language changes a little bit here and becomes more straightforward in terms of talking about different aspects. So I'm going to take this and also include this in there. And then I'm pretending that I'm hand typing this in. And then I also want to take a little bit as the captions from the images, because that's an important text that we also need to measure and see how that computes as well. So I'm hand typing this in, etc. So I'm just doing this as an example of what you would do if you do not have an online based text. You would just hand type in 3 100-word sections from areas that you feel are representative of the text overall. So now we'll check the readability. And what we have here is we have 12.7 as the average grade level. And I believe the previous one was 13.4. And so it's very, very similar. I believe it's off by 0.5, 0.6 points. So it's very similar. So this could is another way that you can go about doing that when you're using a print or paper print-based text. Just typing in 3 100-word sections from the text that you feel best represent the text. But do know you can use online text. So if you can find an online version of the text that you want to use, feel free to use that within StoryTools. So here we have our quantitative measures using storytools.com. And I've just cut and pasted the table printout and put that here. Here it says 12.9. I think maybe when I did the measure before when making the PowerPoint, I didn't include that last sentence. But again, it's within 0.5 of a grade level point, which I think is close enough. So we have these readability scores, these quantitative measures of the text. We do not want to stop here. Unfortunately, many places, many standardized tests, many curriculum development settings, and many even schools that are aligning curriculum stop here when assessing a text. They're like, okay, this text is 12.9. We don't need to know anything more. The computer has done everything. Text complexity in its 3 dimensions is really inviting us to look beyond this. There's much more to comprehension and reading than just these numerical computer-based measures. So that brings us next then to the quantitative elements, the qualitative elements. Sorry, we just did the quantitative, which are quantity numerical. Now we're going into the qualitative elements. And a quick review here is just the qualities of the text. The qualitative elements are the levels of meaning, the maturity of themes, the structure and genre of the text, what prior knowledge it assumes, and the type of vocabulary and what that vocabulary might be alluding to, etc. So again, these cannot be evaluated by a computer. Although they're trying to make programs that can do this, they cannot be done by a computer. They need to be evaluated by a close reader, a reader preferably the teacher who knows the students and knows what they want to accomplish with the text, etc. So some of the tools that we can use for qualitative evaluation are these qualitative measures rubrics, and these are available on the course agenda for session 4, and I very much encourage you to use these. And so I have gone ahead and evaluated Polar Vortex using one of these rubrics, in fact, the informational text rubric. Here we have a qualitative analysis of the Polar Vortex text using the rubric made available for you. And as you can see there, I rank the text exceedingly complex and very complex and moderately complex in a variety of areas. And basically how I did this is by just going to the text and looking for each of these sub areas. So for example, in terms of language features, in terms of vocabulary, if we go to the Polar Vortex text, I ranked it exceedingly complex because of a variety of words that are very specific to the science discipline. Even if my class, and my class is 8th graders, even if it was an 8th grade science class, these words would still be very advanced. We have words such as troposphere and stratosphere and vortices, so words that I perhaps have not heard of, such as vortices, before reading this text, and words, troposphere and stratosphere, that I may know of but not have in-depth knowledge. And the way these terms are presented are assuming that the reader already knows that these are layers of the atmosphere and what they do. Not only is the vocabulary exceedingly complex, but the knowledge demands are exceedingly complex as well. They are expecting that readers already have a solid understanding of global geography using words such as northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, north of the equator, etc. Also using concepts in a comparative way such as the Coriolis effect, assuming that readers already know what that is and building knowledge on that. So lots of exceedingly complex aspects of this text that a computer could not measure on its own. So from this qualitative analysis, I can realize that, this text is around a 11th and 12th grade level text. And if I were going to use this text for full comprehension by my students and have them do things with it and apply this knowledge in this, I would need to do a lot of support in terms of vocabulary and a lot of support activities in terms of building prior knowledge. This rubric has helped me realize that I would need to set up some learning experiences and support related to those elements. Now, going on to the third dimension, reader and task, now we can really look at the match of the text. So the first two elements gave us a sense of the text and how the text would match with the reader. Now we can look larger, even more at the context. So if my readers are 8th grade, urban 8th grade students in an English class, I can know that their prior knowledge perhaps is not going to be as high as needed for that text. And their motivation and interest may not be there as well. And the relevance and purpose of why I would be using it in an English class would be very low. And that, so now it would depend on what am I going to have them do with it? What is my purpose for using the text, and what level of complexity would the text have? So first, before looking at the text complexity, however, we might want to use this rubric or checklist that is available for you to look at student interest level. And going through the questions can help you understand how relevant the text might be and how of high interest it might be for students. And when I analyzed the text, I came up with 2 yeses, 3 maybes, and 10 no's. So not a very high interest level for the students. I gave some yeses and maybes because I'm assuming that my students are from the upper northern Midwest, so maybe they've experienced some of these extreme weather situations, but really not a very high interest text. So now let's look at the task. How might the task impact things? Bloom's taxonomy can be a way to help you analyze the task and how difficult it is, and you can click on this link here to go find out more about that. But now, after looking at these 3 dimensions, I have an analysis of the text. And you may want to pause at this point to look at the text, read through the analysis, and see what I've come up with using the 3 dimensions. Here we have a basic summary of the text. We have quantitative analysis, and then qualitative analysis with specific examples, and then I discussed the reader and the task. More than likely, I wouldn't use this text with urban 8th grade English students, but there are some situations in which I would. I hope that going through this demonstration has been helpful. If you have further questions, just email me and post also to your group.